take no counsel of your fears. Take no counsel of your fears. I don't know if it was Robert E. Lee or Ulysses S. Grant. It was one of those Civil War gentlemen, one of those fine, upstanding Civil War generals who coined that expression for the first time. And it's one that we've all forgotten. And, you know, the very fact that I can't name which general said that, both generals of fine, upstanding American character. And what I respect, I'm not just blowing smoke there. They represented their people. They put their state first, and we've completely lost sight of this idea of states' rights. And why? Well, you know, there is strength in numbers, and our federal government, we're the most powerful nation on earth, and we may not have become that if Abraham Lincoln didn't make the decisions which kept our country together. Now, that said, we've become weak at the local level. We've become rather. We don't know the people who are next door to us. We're intensely connected with this vast federal bureaucracy by way of our tax dollars, if nothing else. But here's the problem: is that listen, in this whole thing of communism versus, I would say, and I think this is the best way to frame the debate, because nobody's talking about communism and the effect that it has had in the way it has weeded itself into the American dialogue. A lot of the Republican pundits like to kind of submit to the whole fear complex of the Democratic left. People think you're crazy if you call it communism. Don't call it communism. Well, it's atheistic communism, but really what it is it's that basest, it's that worst, darkest part of the human soul, which the communists once upon a time appealed to by way of the Russian invented medium of film, which now is, of course, extensively utilized by Hollywood for everything. That's where film came from. That's where modern editing techniques. That's where film, as we know it today, whether you're watching the pornography on Netflix or whatever it is whatever your poison is, whatever your preferred poison is, started with Russian propaganda editing techniques. Is where it all came from. But that's, I'm trying to strike a balance between acknowledging the evil and at the same time I don't want to foster any kind of obsession with it in you, because then that's just silly. So because the fact of the matter is that as it's been said, and far be it from me to misattribute a quote to one of the Kennedys. So I'm not going to say who I think I said it, but it's that. No, it wasn't a Kennedy. It was definitely not a Kennedy who said this, because they're not this intelligent to say something like this. But was that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. So really, it's that specter of that's in the darkness of the human soul, which is the chief enemy of the American people now, as it has always been. But in order to truly fight that fear, which some great American leader once upon a time said that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Was it Reagan? I don't know. Anyway, I'm a millennial, so I'm gonna blame this on the fact that I've been thoroughly brainwashed by communist Linfield public schools. And I've named names. Just watch one of it's in another video, another episode. It's what Satanic Hollywood calls them. Another episode. I'm having an episode at americasmansman.com. Tune in next week when America's Mansman gets into all sorts of mischief. This is sitcom culture. I'm having an episode. Welcome to the road trip with America's Man's Man. So happy to have you along. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. So that's there's wisdom in that quote, and we need to unpack it a little bit because when you're afraid of something, you're not thinking rightly. You're not thinking logically. And so the less afraid you are, the more logical you're going to be. The less fearsome, the less worrisome you are. So one of the things that we need to do as Americans in this media saturated culture is to simply it's not simple if you're not in the habit of doing it. It's about developing habits of because a lot of us, again, in the satanic, communist, atheistic, communist, they're the same thing, satanic, atheistic. In the, I'd say Satanism is just willful atheism, denial of God, denial of the eternal, the Christ person. There are so many forces in our world. There's so many media. They're not forces. They are forces, but they're nothing physical. They're just it's a crazy stew of propaganda that we're surrounded by daily from all sides. I'm about to start a workout, and I'll tell you, it's an unpleasant experience at best when you're killing it at the gym, and then you just start hearing this. They call it music, but it's not music, and it's I don't know if it's quite as bad as rap, but it's like there's a woman's voice and I'm not even going to use the lyrics because again I don't want to give these losers credit, these whores in the case of the women singers, they're not really singing, they're really just kind of panting into the microphone, like that 70s song, what was the disco thing? It's like, I love to love you, baby, and she's just basically orgasming into the microphone. Literally, and I think that's literally what they did. But basically, it's just just pardon the visual for a sec because I want to get the full microphone effect. It's like basically like I'm working out, and you basically hear like I'm dancing, and I'm so sexy, I'm so sexy, and it's our little secret. Like that. That's essentially the meat of the lyrics, the whole song. It's like we're having an affair and don't tell anyone, and I mean, I guess to be honest, that's been half of popular music, so-called popular music over the last 20 years. But it's disgusting. It's absolutely gross. It's whoredom at its very most extreme. Short of saying obscene words, it's just gross. It's literally like you're surrounded by a bunch of STD infested whores, and they're breathing in your ear. Now, how is a nation? You're working out every day. You're trying to be healthy. You're trying to protect your body, trying to think clearly, trying to educate your mind on a regular basis. Perhaps you just heard this wonderful sermon, or maybe if you're into TED Talks, I think there's a bunch of problems with them. And maybe you listened to America's Man's Man on the way to the gym, more likely, because more and more Americans are listening to America's Man's Man. Well, the time after you hear a sermon or you listen to America's Man's Man, your memory kind of replays that in your mind. So I say when this episode of America's Man's Man has concluded, for a while after that, you're going to continue, your mind is going to continue to remember parts of it. And you're going to be saying, oh, gee, this is what America's Man's Man meant by this. And, oh, I remember how this happened in my life, and this is exactly what what America's Man's Man was talking about, right? Now, how is your mind, this all happens automatically in your mind after you have heard anything of noteworthy of any intelligence, and sometimes things that are not intelligent, how are you supposed to, if you say maybe you're headed into a workout just like I am right now, how is your mind supposed to make sense of all this, right? How is your mind supposed to piece it together? Because these are very intelligent ideas that are being communicated. They're very profound ideas, and many of them may be new to you. And they're good ideas. They're morally good. They are intended to edify your soul and build you up as a human being. Now, how are you supposed to remember how is your mind supposed to kind of piece this together, as the mind naturally does, and did in a better age where we didn't have any electronics whatsoever, so you'd listen to a sermon, you'd listen to a lecture, and then you'd be walking home. Your mind would do this, and you'd have some time to walk. Maybe there are some trees, you see trees from time to time, but you're saying, oh, this is the profound brilliance of what we just heard, and this is why it's so brilliant, and maybe you'd discuss it with someone else. How are you supposed to do that? If you don't even have a choice, but suddenly you've heard this brilliant work from America's Man's Man, and this, it has been called brilliant by a number of you. Mind-blowing. Of course, millennials are prone to exaggerate the greatness of things, but I don't believe that America's Man's work can be exaggerated. I don't think you can I like when people underestimate my work because it makes it that much more powerful. But how are you supposed to make sense of any of what I'm telling you right now if you're headed into a workout and then all of a sudden it's like and then you basically have the auditory equivalent of all these whores slogging in your ear. Say, I'm so sexy, and I don't know, whatever it is, and they're all of the songs, they're all that, okay, just, that's it, that's all, like every single song they play at the gym, the workout facility, whatever, and your facility isn't different, because I've been a member of a number of them, and they all play the same exact, heavy slogging, disgusting, junk, and so it would be like if you literally went to work out and you literally had all these, not the kind of woman that you want, but a very worst sort of woman that absolutely repulses you. We're talking STDs on steroids here, like, major, like a cesspool, like I say, a toxic waste dump is what a whore's vagina really is, and you got like 20 of them just, trying to, stick their tongues in your mouth. And all this other, that's what it sounds like. That's what pop music sounds like. It's basically a bunch of whores, basically like raping you in the ear with their blistery, pussy tongues is what this is. And more, it doesn't matter whether you're going to. Maybe you're not working out. Maybe you're just going home. You're listening to the radio. But then this thing comes on, and it's like. It's the whores again, and so you're trying to remember, oh geez, what did America's Man's Man say? That was so brilliant, and I just can't. And then I remember this one from the 90s. It was the first image that came to my mind was a bunch of slutty hairdressers, because at the time I guess I was getting my hair cut by a bunch of slutty hairdressers. But it was this little ditty that came on, and I still remember. I'm going to lick you from your head to your toes, and something like I wish I could do this all day, but I gotta I don't know, I gotta go. I got to go work for my pimp or something. I don't know what the whole but that was basically that. And basically, again, they're all the same. All of this is all pop music. It doesn't matter. There's no love in there. There are no love songs anymore. There's only heavy slogging horror songs. So what does all of this mean? And how is this part of the great infotainment complex that is brainwashing all of us, that is demoralizing all of us? Well, you can't think clearly. I mean, can you really think clearly if everywhere you go, be it the satanic Target store where the transsexual lies in wait to prey on unsuspecting women in the restrooms, and Target is all for this. It's disgusting. Check out Target boycott from the American Family Association. They got all the details, all the stories, all the horror stories. Ugh, Target. I would never. I have not been there since I heard about that. But all of this. What does all this have to do with communism? Well, again, it's really we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Nothing to fear but fear itself. It's only the stupid person that makes the decision that yes, this is what people want to hear when they're working out. It's just stupidity. It's absolute stupidity, and coincidentally, you're prey for any manipulation. You're unable to think of what America's Man's Man was trying to tell you because you have all these this swirl, this toxic stew of what Michael Savage used to call auditory pornography or something, and he was dead right. Auditory nudity, audio nudity, something like that. So warning, what you're about to hear is pornographic, is audio pornography, and that's what it is, really. It's what it is. How are you supposed to make an informed decision? How are you supposed to have any kind of accurate idea of how to plan out your day, which came naturally to a previous generation, but for some reason, of course, you can't even think about how you're going to live your own, how you're going to do something productive, how you're going to really help your fellow man. Communism, of course, and Hollywood have corrupted the idea of what does it mean to really be helpful to your fellow human being. Of course, Christ has all those answers. The Bible has all those answers. But communism, again, in its attempt to demoralize and take down America, has it's discredited that for its own purposes, so it may further exploit you. But all of this to say that the way to eliminate fear, because the only thing that we have to fear is really fear itself. Americans are the finest stock of DNA that has ever existed on planet Earth, and our successes in numerous every imaginable indicator displays that every day, and it does so without stop. Even during the communist Obama years, America prevailed over a communist dictator that was Barack Obama. Who got in there on the backs of acorn illegal voters. Talk about a president that didn't have a right, wasn't supposed to be in there. An imposter, a troll. I mean, talk about a troll. I don't want to discredit presidency, but Barack Obama came as close as anything that might be considered an illegitimate presidency by all counts. I never saw his birth certificate, but I mean, people tell me that that it's real. It's in the United States. And okay. So how do you stave off the fear monster? Well, it's actually very simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. So if you're not accustomed, basically the way that the infotainment complex of media works is that they get you in the habit of consuming. They cement habits, like like when you're clicking on your phone. So you get up and I got to check my email. It's just one of those unconscious things that you're trained to do. You don't have conscious control over it. It's a habit, and habits are in the subconscious. It's like eating. It's why people can't lose weight that want to. People can't go to the gym that want to. Well, they can. It's just that in order to do that, you have to kill the bad habit, and that takes time and energy. So but why is it so difficult, though? Well, because you're surrounded every single day by media messages like Twitter, or twat, as I call it, like the gulag, Google, all the FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Netflix. And all of these companies are conspiring. This is true, by the way. This is not it's a true conspiracy theory of sorts. Well, I take it back. They're not really conspiring with each other, because each of them are motivated by their own advertising goals. But all of the major media companies, again, are owned by that same cooperative, that same oligarchy, the FANG companies. Many of you know that most of the television companies are owned by the same folks. The same thing with Silicon Valley, the FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Netflix. Controlling your device, controlling your all the content on your device, which is really hell, marketed correctly. Like, social media is not really social media. It's anti-social media, but they call it social media so that you think you're doing something positive for yourself, when really you're just a nerd who has been sucked into the delusion of a bunch of megalomaniacal nerds, none the least of which is Zuckerberg. So how do you? When I say so, let's unpack that. Take not counsel of your fears, or do not take counsel of your fears, meaning just ignore them. Just ignore them, because the Dems, the fake news, Silicon Valley, Netflix, they're always going to come up with, so they do this for a living. This is their whole life, folks. They come up with some new twisted plot meant to scare you. And you, well, silly you keep going back for more. It doesn't matter if it's the nightly news drama, which is a fiction loosely based on not even reality, but facts, just trivial facts, whatever they've been able to dredge up out of the AP network, which hates you, by the way. The only way they can succeed is if you lose, and if you win, then they're not making money off of you. It's just the way it works. I've spoken at length about this already, so I'm not going to rehash it. But talking about the fake news media terrorists, the Silicon Valley domestic terrorists, the new fake news is Silicon Valley. But the answer is remarkably simple. It's remarkably simple. Yes, you can read your Bible, but if you're a skeptic of the Bible, don't start there. I'm never going to dissuade anyone from reading the Bible, because the words of Christ are sacred, and whether you know it or not, whether you deny it or not, because of fake news influence, it's the reason that America is America. Without the Bible, without Jesus Christ, there is no America. But I understand if you're skeptical. So here's how to... It's one of the problems even Christians have, and this is why pastors are committing suicide, is that they don't realize how susceptible they themselves are to media influence, to technology influence. They think that because they read their Bible, they're somehow immune. They're immune. That somehow Somehow, if they look at Netflix pornography or any other brand of pornography, that it doesn't affect. They're just oh, it doesn't affect me. She is kind of hot. But you have to. The idea here is, basically, you have to tune it out. You have to make a conscious decision. It takes time and energy to overcome brainwashing, to overcome, and I know I'm calling it brainwashing, and maybe sounds a little conspiracy theory-ish. Well, the fact is, oligarchies work, cartels work, like the new cocoa cartel. Have you heard about the cocoa cartel? Prices of your chocolate bar may be going up soon. But anyway, it's a bunch of companies that are conspiring together to charge you more money. If we all raise our prices together, and we don't allow any capitalism in here, we don't allow any free market efforts to take place, we don't allow anyone to undercut our profits, then all of us are going to get richer, and everyone's going to have to pay more for what we're offering, because we're all conspiring together. It's the FANG companies of Silicon Valley have decided that they value their bank accounts more than the general welfare of the American public, you and me. So how does it work? Well, it's a little bit it's a more complex evil theory, but it's the principle is basically the same. They pump as much habit-forming ideas into your head, which get you flustered, so that you cannot think about anything. You can't think about. You can't remember what the heck you were going to do next, because all you can think about is how you were trying to just work out. And it's like you had all these whores clinging to you and breathing down your neck, and you're trying to lift weights, but then the whores are clinging to your arms, like you got to smack them in the face, because that's what you do when whores are clinging to your neck, like, hey, get away, whore, I'm trying to work out. But that's anyway. That's what they're. So what's the solution? How do you follow that very true but seemingly impractical advice? It's a very abstract concept. Take no counsel of your fears, and then because the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Jesus says, "Do not worry. Do not worry about tomorrow, because today has enough cares, of its own. You have to worry about." God made the lilies of the field and the birds of the sky, and they're not worried, about what. Don't ask what will we eat, what will we wear, because your heavenly Father will clothe you. He cares about you that much more than the lilies of the field, the birds of the sky. How much more will He care for you? So, and then the Christians in the modern church don't understand this. Don't understand it. But there's a continual poison drip from, again, the FANG companies and the fake news and the whole infotainment complex. It's a complex monster, but the main idea is this. In order to think clearly, in order to truly understand what we're all about. I'll get to how communism is related to all this in a bit. You have to starve the poison drips which are in your life. Like if you're trying to, if you're a good husband, you will be aware, you will have an awareness of all of those leeches that would drain your marriage and your family of its integrity, like a would-be adulterer, a would-be, someone in your wife's workplace, someone in your wife's, social organization, even in a church, one of those Ashley Madison preachers. But before you can do that, before you can before you can keep a marriage healthy, one must protect one's own mind from the various life-sapping forces which would otherwise inhabit it. And one of those are those again, the toxic ideas and the negativity. And this is where one really does well to take the idea of negativity seriously. There's a lot of pie in the sky talk about positivity, and which a lot of it is really denial, denial that there are obstacles that need to be overcome, and that's actually a positive thing if you think about it, because challenges in life are a wonderful thing. Problems are a wonderful thing, provided that you see them in perspective. But then there are a host of unnecessary would-be challenges that don't really exist, but that, again, poisonous, toxic streams of information, feeds, if you will. Again, from Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Twitter, Netflix. Twitter is one of them, for instance. The fake news media is probably the biggest one, although Silicon Valley is quickly overtaking the fake news media as a number one contributor to all those toxic information flows. Just like if you were taking just a minute quantity of arsenic or cyanide, something not even big enough to kill you, even though it doesn't take much. If you're just taking a slow poison drip of antifreeze every day, as some murderers have legitimate. That's the way you have to picture it, is the fake news and the FANG companies of Silicon Valley. They're always trying to sneak in that slow poison drip of toxic information. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that there are many things that a wise man might wish to be ignorant of, and this is what he meant by that. You have a whole bunch of even people can do this too, although people can only do it for so long because they get worn out. I've heard a pastor once called them a very draining person, or a VDP. People who they no matter how kind you are to them, they only bring back evil into your life, a toxic stew of evil, which is why the Bible says we don't cast pearls before swines, or the Bible tells us, do not cast pearls before swines. Because the truth is, most people don't want to be helped, and I've learned that, trying to help people over the years in my personal life, is that so many people, because it's such a hard pattern to break out of when you've been indoctrinated, when you've been raised in a world of fake news media, of this evil, this never-ending evil. Just like that, like Lady Gaga was raped by someone, and you learn to it's like you learn to love your wrongdoer, and it's just kind of, unfortunately, the way that this is why the Bible says that to him who has much, more will be added unto him, and to him who has little, it will all be taken away, or more will be he's going to lose more of it. And that's because it takes such that that's not a complete condemnation, but it illustrates how very difficult it is to break out of that toxic way of thinking, which the media poisons you with, if you will let it. And if you will let it is the key part, because we don't have to let it. Again, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And so the key really is, since you can only control how your mind reacts to things to so much of a degree. Again, it's hubris, and it's unfortunately the folly of many pastors to think that, well, gee, since they know Christ, they can go on Ashley Madison, and they will not be. They can go on a site that's intended to help break up marriages, and that they will be completely unaffected by it. people who work in law enforcement. They're on a regular basis. They are exposed to the most evil things, federal, local, doesn't matter, and some of them on a regular basis, from just getting accustomed to it so much, having it piped into their lives, being surrounded by it every day. Some of them end up becoming the drug dealer, becoming the pornographer, the rapist. In fact, it happened very close to us. The chief of police recently, they just corrupted an entire police department because he got in a bad way, and what that means is, and that's not to dismiss the evil and the because all of us have a choice, and if you're in a position like that, then you have to be extra careful to guard your heart and mind against all of these things. But these are concepts which you will never grasp if you subject yourself to the monotony of, say, rap music, which is not art at all. Art challenges your thinking. It causes you to simplistic, unnuanced noise such as rap music doesn't challenge your thinking. It's a bunch of obscenities. I mean, it may challenge your thinking, but it challenges it in the wrong way. It challenges you to, it injects more poison into your mind in the way of obscenities. Why are Christians so opposed to saying fuck, every once in a while? Like even then, I didn't feel quite right just saying it. And the reason is that we're very mindful of saying obscenities like the F word. They're a sign that you don't completely have it together. You don't have it completely together because you have to say something like that, and that's the only way that you can get someone's attention to use an obscenity like that. That's you can't think things through in such a way. You don't have the wherewithal. You don't have the emotional, the intelligence. You don't have the spiritual, the physical resources to deliver a compelling argument. And so you just you drop an F-bomb, and oh gee, that gets everybody's attention, gets minor snickers, but maybe. Really what it shows when you use obscenities on a regular basis, unqualified, and you have no desire to stop using them, is that you're a very angry little person, or at least your mind is little if you're not. That you have no other recourse, that you just have to use these words. I'm painting with broad strokes here, but really there's no other reason to use them. It's people who are happy or contented. There's no reason to say, oh, F this, F that, I did, I effed your mother last night, or it's like really that's funny. That's the best you can come up with. I don't know. It's but that's this is part of the toxic stew of the like the Bible compares the gospel to planting seed, broadcasting seed, which will bear its legitimate fruits. And good trees, good fruits come from good trees, and bad fruits come from bad trees. It's just the way it is. Good fruit, good trees come from good seed, and bad. And so really what you have is the way that you avoid fear in all of its ugly manifestations, whatever those are to you, and it doesn't really matter what the manifestation is. The way to avoid fear is to guard your mind and heart against workplaces, against environments, against social, because in-person social gatherings can be the same if it's filled with toxic people. Again, people can be purveyors of evil too, except it's just so much more efficient. The media has so much more streamlined and systemized the process of of planting seeds of fear in your mind. And this is what Hollywood and the fake news do for a living. This is how they make their money off of you. And you become the product, and you perish more quickly. You become unhealthier as a result of it. So the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, and therefore take no counsel of your fears. So, as it were, we only have so much control over our minds. That's why people are declared, insane or whatnot in court, and so they weren't really, he wasn't guilty of the murder because, well, he had no control over what he was doing. Well, what does that really mean? In the process of a Christian upbringing, in the process of a great society like America, and a great upbringing by Christian parents, and a good society like America, we are taught by example and by rote to master the flesh, as the Bible calls it, because we don't have complete control over our bodies any more than we have complete control over our minds. There's that conscious part of the mind which is constantly wrestling with the unconscious or the subconscious, which is kind of like a bunch of organisms of its own, that your conscious mind is kind of like the ringleader of, and that your conscious mind's saying, well, I want to live a holy life. Well, this is why it's difficult. This is why it's because you have to master that, and you master that through the force of habit, and through one of the ways you master it is by you do have that element in you, the flesh nature. I think there are good elements of the flesh nature, and there are bad elements of the flesh nature. And because all of this, the flesh nature keeps your mind alive. If you didn't have a good body designed by God to do good things, like have great American children and carry on your family legacy, then you wouldn't have a mind, because the mind cannot exist apart from the body. So the body is not evil, the flesh is not evil. However, it has to be managed adequately. It has to be just like a workplace has to be managed adequately, just like a nation has to be managed adequately to a degree. And so all of those toxins, those toxic people, those toxic media, again, pornographic, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, Google, the Fagin companies or the Fang companies, this toxic stew of junk that the fake news and the Fang companies want to fill your life with. Excuse me. You have to learn to starve. You have to learn to starve those things. You have to learn to starve the parts of your mind which are the purveyors of fear, and you do this by willfully taking the time and energy to diagnose, to reject those things in your life which are those slow poison drips in your food, just like a marriage. Things like maybe a bar, the local saloon, local watering hole would be one of the places that puts a strain on your marriage, because you should be taking care of the kids, but maybe you should be enjoying some leisure time with your wife, but instead you're fending off horny drunk guys, or whatever. So and that takes energy. It takes time and energy, and that saps your mental, physical, emotional resources. So the same is true of your own mind and body. You only have so many. You have finite resources as a finite human being. You've got to make a conscious decision in managing the complex stew of good and evil desires which God gave you in the form of the gift of the human body and mind. You have to make willful decisions to starve those fearful types of things. Take not counsel of your fears. The fearful part of you, and you don't know what those are unless you're educated as to what they are. Unfortunately, so if you're not careful, if you don't know any better, you will continue to consume the Netflix, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, Twitter, the fake news, the gulag, Google, and without realizing that these very things that you do on a regular basis are actually poisoning poisoning your mind, by feeding the very worst, the very most evil things which are attempting to sabotage you. I'd say that the so-called homosexual lifestyle would be one of those things. You're essentially, you're feeding your the purpose of your waste orifice is to remove waste for the body. But no, this is listen to enough fake news, and maybe, as one South Park episode suggests, maybe you would use that to eat things instead. You'd stuff food up that instead of your mouth and try to digest it the other way. It just doesn't make sense. It's absolute. But if you watch enough fake news, enough infotainment media, then this is the kind of stuff you get. So take not counsel of your fears. End of the day, the thing that makes communism evil is that there are two kinds of people. Nobody's happier than nobody's happier. Nobody's more content. Nobody's more productive. Nobody does more good for the world than the United States of America, hands down. There's no contest. We make the world a better place on a regular basis. Let's look at China. China they have zero respect for human life. They kill babies they don't want. They just do. Human life is not. It's a stink hole of. It's almost as bad as Los Angeles, where the homosexual homeless crap in the street, and the Democrats. They're like, yes, we want more of this. We love this. We will love anyway. At the end of the day, communism, because people say to America's man's man sometimes, well, but we did all this, and we took land from these people who didn't want to take, we took land forcibly from people who didn't want it to be taken from the. Well, first of all, the Indians, I'm told, they don't really they don't take ownership of land, so they just kind of wander here and about, and they're peripatetic. They're worse than peripatetic. They just wander. They are nomads, essentially. The land belongs to everybody, and they made no claim to any land. So first of all, it wasn't their land, and they never claimed it was their land. They claimed it was everybody's. So that's the first thing, is that they didn't have that objective sense of right and wrong, which fills you with a healthy sense of, well, this is mine, and you shouldn't intrude on it. A healthy sense of, say, boundaries, which the fake news and media intrudes upon daily. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, people have been robbing other people's land since the beginning of the world. That's the story of human civilization, is people taking things that don't belong to them and not giving them back. And as far as things go, capitalism is the very best system for making sure everybody has exactly what they need when they need it. Really managing, just like a good, healthy mind manages the human body, managing expectations among a vast majority of people. And capitalism, everybody has to be, the rules of life dictate, just reality dictates that we all have to be a slave to somebody sometime. Otherwise, nothing gets done, and people just run amok, crapping in the streets, like in Los Angeles under the Democrats, the communist Democrats. So what's the solution? The solution is, well, we can't get rid of the fact that everybody has to do something for everybody else at some point in their life. So the best thing we can do is manage it. A communist solution, of course, was like the Bernie Sanders camp recently said, we're going to put you in a concentration camp. We're going to give you free education, meaning we're going to make you lift stones, and that means that the billionaire is going to lose everything he has, and everybody's going to lose everything. Nobody owns anything. You're just going to lift stone, and you're going to crush stone for the rest of your life. And you're going to like it unless you're part of the Bernie Sanders family. It's communism. Capitalism, American capitalism, says, well, we're going to put Americans first. We're going to put our own country first, yes, in the name of Jesus Christ, because this is the best land and we are the watchdogs, really, of the world, and no one will be happy unless, there will be a nuclear. If America were to go away tomorrow, there'd be nuclear wars. The Iranians would enrich their plutonium and whatnot, and uranium, and that would be, it'd be the end of the end. They'd probably start a fight with the Russians, and the Russians, well, gulags. So
So, talk about an environmental catastrophe. Talk about the end times. Well, you'd have, it'd be Terminator 3, right? So, contrast that to our good President Donald J. Trump, and how he magnificently represents the American way, and he's very humble about doing it. Trump is not an original way of governing. He simply represents the old way, and it's the very best way, because it's the only way, the Christian Protestant work ethic kind of way, that America's ever survived, which is, so you have communism where everybody's a slave, or you have capitalism, you have American capitalism, the uniquely American way of capitalism, which is founded upon Jesus Christ, where we all have a compulsion to treat each other the way we'd like to be treated. We don't cast pearls before swine. So if you have an ignorant mofo who just doesn't want to take any instruction or whatever, you just say, fine, feel free to go about the communist way, and whatever, do whatever. They'll never be successful because they allow that slow poison drip from Hollywood, from communist Hollywood, into their life, and they're just going to go insane eventually. And the best we can is to have a healthy legal system to keep our good Christian American family safe from people like that are just they choose to be losers. And again, we don't spend too much time here on America's Man's Man attempting to cast pearls before swine, because the Bible tells us not to. So we don't, and it's foolish. It's a waste of resources. Remember, we have finite resources, and we don't waste our resources on losers, because losers, in the end, they are presented the choice at some point in their life. They want to accept Christ, or they want to accept the American way, especially if they live here in America, and some of them just don't want to. And it's best to forgive, bless, and release those people. Say, well, I forgive you. You don't know any better, but we can't have that in our life. Can't have fake news media in our life. Can't have the FANG companies in our life. People like America's Man's Man, people like Donald Trump, are too busy doing good things to worry about silly things like that, because they'll come up with everything. They'll even try to impeach you, evidently, for no reason whatsoever. And it's like, yep, talk to the fake news, because people aren't listening. Good people aren't listening. Of course, all the foolhardy people, that's where communism finds fertile soil sometimes, in these crazy fake news obsessed people. But if you do want to do the right thing, if you want to make the very best use of your life, if you want to be on the side of Americans, the only successful form of government that's ever worked, not because you never have to work for anyone, but because we manage it so darn well. And when I say we manage it so darn well, I mean that you are a slave. Again, granted that life consists of doing things for other people you don't want to do, encountering people in your life you don't want to encounter. The American capitalist system, the Christian American, and this is why America is proven God's exceptional nation in our magnificent management of America, in such a way that we're really the protectors and the benefactors of the rest of the world by God's good grace. With capitalism, you make the decision yourself on where you want to enslave yourself to another human being for however many hours a day, which is, your job. Everybody works for someone. I mean, you could say that right now, America's Man's Man is working for you. I'm late for my workout because I'm telling you this, because it's very important that I'm telling you this, but I recognize that there's a need for wisdom in America, and that for whatever reason, God's given me this wisdom, and so it's my joy and my privilege and my honor to pass it along to you as a fellow slave, if you will, as a member of the human race. But as far as slaves go, and all human beings, again, are slaves to somebody else at some point in their lives. You can't get away from it. Even if you come from a billionaire family, you're a slave to your parents as a child, and even when you grow up, it's like if you become president of the United States, like Donald Trump has, and you don't do your job, I'm quoting someone here, You don't do your job as president, you could be the president of the United States. And if you don't act with a certain degree of humility like a slave to someone else, ultimately to God our Father, the Christian God, the God of America, the religion upon which America was founded and without which America is nothing, which is Jesus Christ, the Bible. If you're the president of the United States and you don't have a degree of humility, they're going to throw you out. You're going to get fired. You're going to get fired. Even the man who says, you're fired, will get fired. Even the president of the United States will get fired if he doesn't do his job. Now, of course, it's not a problem for President Donald Trump because he has those good values from that good military-like upbringing. He's got that respect, and he's got Christ in him. Which is why President Trump will get reelected this year. And quite I would say probably by a landslide. But anyway, that's why in American capitalism, in Christian American capitalism, everybody is as free as you could possibly be, and that's why American exceptionalism, that's why Christian American exceptionalism is practiced, as preached, not even as preached, because President Trump just does it. He's not a hypocrite who talks about it. He does it. And that's what a president we have. And in an age where, again, all of the communist forces and mostly union-led, be it in government schools or fake news media or Silicon Valley, the oligarchy of Silicon Valley, once you start starving all of those parts of your brain. Again, take not counsel of your fears. Don't feed those elements of your brain which would sow the seeds of self-doubt. So how do you do that? Well, you really, again, because you don't have control over all of them, you have to starve them, and you starve them by cutting off. It's a local fake news. Yeah, see, this is a fake news radio station. See, this is WBZ Boston. It's a fake news outlet, and again, they make pretense of telling you things that you need to know, and most Americans are stupid enough to think that it's actually factual. And again, I'm going to remind you. In most cases, if the fake news reports something, it's actually less likely to be true than if they had never talked about it at all. Again, it's a manipulation system, and the purpose is to feed all of those fear centers in your brain, which would ultimately sabotage you. So, take not counsel of your fears, because the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Starve those parts of your brain which we do have limited control over, even if we do have Christ. And the way that you do that, again, take not counsel of your fears. The way that you do that actively, because it takes some management, it takes some skill, it takes some finesse, it takes some wisdom, because it's very easy to say, but many people, oh, gee, I don't feel confident. How do I gain more confidence? Well, this is how you do it. You starve all of those silly things that you have been trained by habit to consume, like the fake news media, like the FANG companies of Silicon Valley, all of these, all of whom, by the way, for whatever reason, coincidentally promote communism. They don't call it that, but that's what they do. But really what they're promoting is that self-loathing that they themselves have internalized due to communist union influence. But take not counsel of your fears, and you'll realize over just a short period of time how silly those fears really are. Starve those artificial and natural sources, both media sources and people in your life, the very draining persons, if you will, in your own life, who feed those fear centers and fill your brain with needless, with silly, because oftentimes, because they can't manage their own fears, they have nothing better to do than to dump the toxic overflow of evil, life-draining, poisonous toxic ideas that they can't control in their own lives into you, and that's why they do it. It's the only reason they do it. If they were of right mind, then they would be doing something great with their life, and they wouldn't be trying to poison you. But it's a disease. That's why I call it a sociological disease. This fake news, media influence. You want to be a healthy person. You want to do something important. Maybe you even want to be the future president of the United States. Starve off those things. Starve those starve those unhealthy parts of your brain, which would poison your consciousness with irrational, unrealistic fears, and in doing so, realize the seeds of American capitalist Christian greatness within you. You heard it from America's Man's Man, americasmansman.com. Thanks so much for joining us on this epic road trip into the center of your greatness, right here, just north of the hub of the universe and the land of the free, the home of the brave, the good old Christian, God's exceptional nation, the good old Christian United States of America. I'm Peter Vidala, America's Man's Man.